Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I offer an update on the Madeleine McCann case in light of Christian Brueckner being named as a suspect by German investigators? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. I will start with a summary of the McCann case. I've covered this thoroughly in another video, so I'll keep it brief here. On April 28, 2007, two physicians from the UK, Jerry and Kate McCann, arrived in Praia da Luz, Portugal for vacation. Their three children were with them, 2-year-old twins and Madeleine, who was 3 years old. The family was staying in an apartment in the Ocean Club. On May 3, 2007, the couple went to a restaurant located in the Ocean Club, about 160 feet away from the apartment. They left their three children in the apartment and left the door unlocked. They would come back and check on them periodically. Kate McCann checked on her children at 10 p.m., only to realize that Madeleine was missing. This would be the beginning of arguably the most notorious missing child case in recent history. The police made a phenomenal number of serious mistakes in the investigation, and the crime was not solved. Now taking a look at Christian Brueckner. At the time of making this video, he has not been charged in connection with Madeleine McCann's disappearance. This kind of explains why the reports that we have so far on Brueckner do not have a high level of precision in terms of the dates. We see some sources have one date, other sources have another date. In some cases, the years don't even match from one report to the next. This is important to keep in mind as I go through the timeline. Christian Brueckner is a German citizen. He has a long history of criminality, much more extensive than I'll cover here. He was first arrested at age 15 for theft. He moved from job to job when he was young. In 1993, he was arrested in connection with an assault of a sexual nature against a child. In this video, when I use the word assault, that is the type of assault to which I am referring. To avoid going to prison, he fled to Portugal. He lived out of a Volkswagen van until moving into a house. This house was only about a mile from the Ocean Club. He made a living as a burglar, and he also dealt drugs. His favorite targets for burglary were hotels and holiday apartments, including those in Praia da Luz. Eventually, he was arrested and extradited back to Germany to face those earlier charges. He went to prison and was released. He returned to Portugal. In 2005, he assaulted a 72-year-old woman. He video recorded his crime. We would find out later that this is something he did frequently. This was part of his MO. The attack was described as particularly heinous. The victim was too afraid to talk, and for a time anyway, Brueckner avoided arrest in connection with the crime. This takes us to May 3, 2007, 1 hour before Madeleine McCann disappears. Cell phone data reveal that Brueckner's phone received a call from a prepaid cell phone. Triangulation puts Brueckner's phone at or near the Ocean Club. The police would not realize this for some time. They failed to make the connection in the crucial days and weeks following Madeleine's disappearance. One day after Madeleine McCann disappears, Brueckner puts his car in someone else's name. Shortly after this, he returned to Germany, where he ran a general store that was next to a school. Brueckner did not come on the radar as a possible suspect until 2013. He was in a chat room where he talked about assaulting children. A tip also came from an interview that the McCanns gave in Germany. The tip identified Christian Brueckner as a possible suspect. Instead of investigating Brueckner in some normal manner, the local police decided to be polite. They sent Brueckner a letter asking him to swing by the police station and tell them what he knew about Madeleine McCann. Brueckner decided to decline their generous offer. He chose instead to flee. Sometime around 2015, the police learned about a building that Brueckner had owned. It was like a small factory. They searched it and a camper that was on the property. They would find thousands of images and videos featuring assault. They would also find girls' swimsuits. Brueckner fled to Portugal. He was arrested and extradited to Germany. where he was put in prison. In 2017, that earlier interview of the McCanns was replayed in Germany. Witnesses came forward and said that Brueckner had offered a drunken confession in which he revealed involvement in Madeleine McCann's disappearance. In addition, friends said that they saw the video featuring Brueckner assaulting the 72-year-old woman in Portugal. Brueckner was finally arrested for that crime and remained in jail. In 2020, the German police would say that they had strong evidence suggesting Brueckner, now age 43, was involved in Madeleine's disappearance and that Madeleine was dead. They indicated they had no forensic evidence. None of the evidence they did have involved Madeleine McCann's body or parts of her body. Even still, they felt confident Brueckner was guilty. At the same time, they do not believe they have enough evidence to charge him. So there seems to be some type of mismatch between the phrase strong evidence and the phrase not enough to charge him. What does the word strong mean to them? When contemplating going out on a date with somebody, would they say, I don't mind going out with this person, I only strongly dislike them? Now moving to my analysis. Madeleine McCann's disappearance generated somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 leads within just a few years. The terrible police investigations and subsequent frustrating lack of information have left people wondering what could have happened. In this environment, many wild theories were developed. For example, maybe the McCanns had something to do with it, maybe their friends did, maybe some type of sophisticated trafficking ring was involved. Theory after theory, but little evidence to support any of them. After the announcement that the German police made, it seems as though there might have been a truly high-quality lead in this case. Would it be safe to say the case was actually solved? Brueckner had a long history of criminal activity, including offenses against children and other vulnerable victims. Summarizing the evidence pointing to him as the killer, he had all of those images and videos. Friends reported he had a history of dating young girlfriends and mistreating them. A friend of his said that he talked about building a dungeon in his basement, similar to what Josef Fritzl had constructed. He allegedly made that drunken confession. He lived about a mile from the Ocean Club. He had a long history of burglarizing vacation apartments in that area. His cell phone was used right near where McCann was at the time of her disappearance. He demonstrated that suspicious behavior regarding his vehicle, registering it in somebody else's name, and he left Portugal right after McCann's disappearance. Taking everything together and then adding the fact that the police have strong evidence connecting him to the crime that they have not shared, it seems likely that Brueckner was the killer. Although it would be nice to know what the evidence was. Perhaps someday that'll be released. So what do I think happened in this case? This is just my theory, of course, I don't know. On the night of May 3, 2007, Christian Brueckner was looking to commit more crimes in the Praia de Luz area, but he was always open to the idea of an abduction. Even though he lived near the Ocean Club, he was in his motor vehicle. He parked nearby. He targeted the apartment being used by the McCanns, possibly because he received a cell phone call telling him that children were unattended in that apartment. We know that in the reservation at the restaurant, the McCanns indicated they left their children alone. It's important to note that the police do not know who called Brueckner. Again, this is just a theory. He may have found that apartment just by chance. Brueckner enters the apartment. The door, of course, is unlocked. He doesn't need to break in. He sees the children sleeping and decides to abduct Madeleine. He assaults her, murders her, and disposes of the body quickly, probably within 24 hours. He is overwhelmed by the amount of attention being given to the case. He realizes that if the police did their job, he would be connected to her disappearance. If nothing else, he only lived a mile away and had an extensive history of committing assault. He was an obvious suspect. He returns to Germany after trying to disguise the ownership of his vehicle, afraid that somebody may have seen it parked near the Ocean Club. With my theory, he was opportunistic. If the McCanns had not left their children unattended, Madeleine would not have been taken. What really stands out to me in the case of Brueckner is how gently he's been treated by the criminal justice system in Germany. He commits an assault, goes to jail, gets out, commits an assault, goes to jail. It's like the court system doesn't understand the idea of a tendency. Brueckner's crimes were not accidents. When people engage in this type of behavior, it is usually part of their personality. For example, people like this are often psychopathic and narcissistic. Those traits don't simply go away. I think this case stresses the need for better mental health and personality assessment when determining the sentence for an offender. Also, what about supervision after release? Brueckner should not have been allowed to travel to Portugal. Another area of this case that stands out to me is how terrible this was for the McCanns. Many people still blame them because they left their children alone, which was a horrible and reckless mistake. Even still, they have paid a terrible price. If Madeleine had been taken through no fault of their own, that would still lead to a lot of suffering, but to know that one's negligence and recklessness directly led to the crime, I don't know how they can ever live that down. Jerry McCann would say that if they thought for a moment Madeleine could be taken, they never would have left her alone. How is it that somebody who is intelligent would believe for a second that leaving a child unattended in an apartment in a foreign country could never lead to her being taken? Now, maybe he could have thought it's unlikely that she would be taken, but the idea that she would never be taken is just not realistic. The McCanns were never charged with negligence. The police would say it was because of compassion. But compassion for whom? I think in a way the authorities forgot about Madeleine. She suffered the most. It would seem that in this situation, everyone failed her. Those are my thoughts on the update of the Madeleine McCann disappearance in light of Christian Brueckner being named as a suspect. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.